Alright, welcome back Matrix. We're going to be looking at exchange rates in this video today. So, let's take a look at the first thing about exchange rates, which is currency ratios or relationships. Exchange rates, what are they for? They're used to compare the value of different currencies to each other. So, let's take, for example, rands and dollars. If we were to compare the value of the rand to the dollar, you would see that 1 rand would buy you 0.0625 dollars, or 1 rand is worth or equal to 0.0625 dollars. Alright, another way to put it, just so that it's a little easier to understand, is $1 is equal to 16 rand. Okay, I've made this exchange rate up just for ease of purposes. I can explain it later. Alright, take note of something here. Exchange rates will be used or be quoted and use up to 4 decimal places when being quoted. Okay, the reason why they do this is so that we have fewer rounding errors coming in. Alright, it's one of the reasons why I had this cute little 16 rand to the dollar sort of situation. If I was using a more realistic rate, there'd be far more decimal places and there'd have to be rounding, and you'll end up having a situation where some amounts are off by a couple of cents to a couple of rands even, depending on how bad the rounding is. Alright, so when we're doing converting, we're doing the left to right rule of conversions. What's that? If you're going and reading it from left to right, you're going to multiply. So if I was using my $1 equals 16 rand, then I would be taking, and I was converting dollars to rands, I would multiply. So I'd say $10 multiplied by 16 will give me 160 rand. Okay. If I was working the other way around, then I would have to go right to left. I would have to divide. So if I was going from having 160 rand, I'd have to divide it by 16 to get my $10. So it really depends on what sort of exchange rate's being quoted to you. You can play around with both of these either way. So I'm going to give you an example of using both of these. So my example, we want to convert $75 to rands. So I'm going to use my initial rate of $1 or 1 rand equals 0.0625 dollars. Okay, so my $75, I need to divide it because I'm going to go from right to left. So I divide and I get 1,200 rand. The same thing can be double checked if I use my other rate. So $1 equals 16 rand. Because I'm going from dollars to rands, I'm multiplying. It also gives me 1,200 rand. Now please note, this is very important. In real life, there would be a small difference between your results depending on which rate you choose. This is due to a rounding error caused by the rates being rounded to 4 decimal places. Most exchanges of foreign exchange are done electronically, and so they can go to a far longer set of decimal places, and the rounding errors are pretty much turned up to 0. Okay, now just to give you a little bonus thing about the exchange rates. Exchange rates are determined based on supply and demand. It's like an auction between things. So if there is more demand for the currency, people want the products manufactured by that country or want to invest in that country or whatever, the price of that currency will increase relative to other currencies. Take China, for example. Their currency, up until somewhere in the sort of mid-2000s, was actually pegged. They wanted to encourage Americans to buy their products, so they said, well, their currency is exactly a specific amount to the dollar, to make sure that Americans went, hey, that's a really attractive price. And it also fixed in things and stopped any sort of problems of prices fluctuating. A person knew exactly how much they would want to buy. And so there was a big demand for the Chinese currency. I think it's called the yuan. Please forgive my pronunciation. All right. And as soon as they stopped doing that pegging, that keeping a fixed rate, suddenly the value of their currency increased a lot because there was still a high demand for their currency. Because obviously you can't buy things from people in dollars. You have to convert it to the local currency actually. All right. So that's what actually goes and increases things. That's why we want foreign investment in countries or people wanting to buy more gold from South Africa, because there'll be a bigger demand for rands and that conversion will happen. It's also one of the reasons why we like tourists, because they buy our rands. Okay, now if there's a less of a demand or a bigger supply, all right, in that currency, the value of the currency will decrease relative to other currencies. This usually happens when foreign investors pull out of the country or a country needs to start importing most of their products. Think Zimbabwe importing food. They had to go and find other people's money because they couldn't buy food themselves in their own country. So they were having to buy food from South Africa, food from Botswana, importing from America, or whatever, using other things. And so there was less of a demand. And that whole thing of supply and demand, if you've got lots of something that you don't want, you're going to try to sell it for as cheap as possible. And so people are going to take advantage of that. And that's what pulls the value down. All right, so to sum it up, your exchange rates are really just the value of currencies relative to each other. The more someone wants of your currency, the higher the exchange rate is going to go. The less people want your currency, or the more you are demanding other people's currencies, it's going to pull down the value of your exchange rate. Okay, and they're all relative and can be influenced by far more things. All right, so that's video 1, and hopefully you are okay with all of that. Please stay safe.